Well, welcome. Shabbat Shalom, friends. It's nice to see you. And by now, hopefully you've seen the announcement about our days of awe, our high holy days, which are going to be both the old and the new. The old in that we will be experiencing these days that our people, our ancestors experienced for thousands of years, but new in that we will be doing it virtually. And it is going to be an amazing experience. We have to look forward, not backward, and it is going to be phenomenal. And you'll see the video explanation. Hopefully you've seen it. Obviously a sense of loss that we can't be together, but as we talked about, meaning and safety are our guidelines. And that is our hope, that we combine being safe with one another while bringing meaning and purpose and a wonderful experience for all of us. But it's Shabbat now, so we're going to experience Shabbat in this moment, a sense of peace, sense of calm, of hope, and we're going to open with that song of peace, Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Ni Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Ni Melech, Malachei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah,
Shabbat Shalom, and wonderful music to gather us together to make us feel as one, even though we're in our separate locations. And so we turn to words from the Torah, from the Shema, that remind us of not just the fact that there's one God in the universe, but that all of us are one. All of us are connected and a part of the holiness of the universe. And so we sing the words of Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malechuto Leolam Vaed.
Michamocha is a song of freedom, but freedom and responsibility are not opposites. As we are experiencing during this time of pandemic, our freedom is not unbridled. It has to be balanced by our responsibility to cause no harm to others, or to minimize the harm we cause to others. And so the Michamocha kind of combines the Exodus and Sinai. Exodus is that experience of freedom, and Sinai is that acceptance of responsibility. They exist together in both of us. And we mark that by singing the Michamocha, the song of freedom and responsibility.
כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילה עושה פלא, נורא תהילה עושה פלא אדוני, ימלוך לעולם ועד. Ay la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Ay la 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 la. Nora tehilo osei pele. Nora tehilo osei pele Adonai, yimloch leolam vaed.
Now we take a moment for private prayer or meditation. If you're watching on tape, feel free to pause us for a moment so you can take as long as you like. And perhaps since you may be alone, as we are in our own individual spaces, you can speak your prayers out loud. God can hear us even when we're quiet, but there's a special feeling that we get if we just let the words come out. Bodedut, as it's called in the Hasidic tradition, to say our words of prayer out loud and let them reach out to the heavens. So we pause for a moment of private prayer and meditation.
To the prayers within each of our hearts, we add these words. Osei Shalom Bimromav. May the one who creates peace in the high heavens help us to bring peace within the world to all who dwell upon the earth. Osei Shalom Bimromav. Uyase Shalom Aleinu Le'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imelu Amen. Osei Shalom Yimromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu Le'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imelu Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imelu Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav Uyase Shalom Aleinu Le'al Kol Amen.
The healing of body, mind, and spirit is something that I find we are in constant need of. When we see the news, when we see, feel, talk to friends and family who are suffering, it pushes us to lift them up and pray for them, not to mention ourselves, our own pain, our own worries, and those who are in the hospital right now, those who are sick, those who are suffering. Healing comes in many ways. Sometimes it doesn't change the external circumstances, but can change how we experience and how we address those circumstances. And so think about that as together we sing the words of the Misha Berach, as we think about all of our friends and family who are in need of healing.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishevera imotenu nekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
This week in our Torah, we come to one of the stories that you don't find in the Bible story books we give to children, one that we don't really talk about in religious school and places like that. One of those dark stories that we sort of wish wasn't in the Torah at all. And yet this year, I think in particular, it has some interesting resonance, and it's worth bringing up the story of Pinchas. So if you don't know this story, this story that in the Israelite encampment, Pinchas comes across an Israelite man having sexual relations with a Midianite woman, and he impales them both on a single spear. And for this, God doesn't punish Pinchas for breaking one of the 10 commandments and committing murder. Rather, God rewards Pinchas. God gives Pinchas the role of a priest. And in the Hebrew, it says he receives a brit shalom, a covenant of peace from God. This story in some ways reverberates throughout history. I mean, it teaches some people that religion gives permission to commit crimes. That zealotry in the pursuit of an ideal, zealotry that goes all the way to murder, is not a crime. It's the understanding of those perhaps who build illegal settlements. It's a comfort for those who say the South will rise again. Right? These kinds of things come directly out of this gift given to Pinchas for his zealotry. So it's a section that we, as modern people, often like to skip. And the traditional commentaries also have trouble with this section. The Talmud has a lengthy discussion about what would happen if that had happened in the days of the rabbinic court, the Sanhedrin. And the conclusion is that if Pinchas came to the Sanhedrin, he would have been told that even though his understanding of the law about consorting with idol worshipers might be correct. That is not what we do. Others point to the blessing that God gives by making Pinchas a priest. It's interesting that by giving Pinchas those duties, God essentially takes the spear out of Pinchas's hand. He's no longer able to be one of the soldiers who defends the nation. He is now a priest instead. There's also an interesting orthographic feature in the Torah. I mean, these things always are things that I find really fascinating. We're told that every letter of the Torah has to be written perfectly. There is one exception, and it's in that phrase, Brit Shalom, the kind of peace that God gives to Pinchas. The Vav in the word Shalom is broken in the text, right? It's a suggestion of breaking the spear. Peace can only happen when we break the spear and the sword. So our tradition is to judge Pinchas not by the time in which he lived, but by the standards of the day in which we read the story. So there have been a time many, many thousands of years ago when the zeal to protect Judaism from idolatry might have been seen as heroic. But even by the time of the Talmud, it is not. And certainly today, when I looked at the URJ web page about Pinchas, there are probably a dozen articles about this parsha, and almost none of them actually deal with this story. They deal with the smaller stories that surround the story of Pinchas and the parsha. So we hold people to the highest ideals of humanity, not necessarily allowing them to slide by on the standards of their own time. It reminds me of one of my great rabbinic heroes from American Jewish history. Rabbi David Einhorn, in the run-up to the Civil War, served a community in Baltimore, Maryland, which was, of course, a slave state. He spoke weekly against the institution of slavery. And when he was approached by the board of the congregation, who told him, Rabbi, you can't keep preaching this abolition here. It's going to harm you. It's going to harm our congregation to be seen this way. He got up on the bima the next week to begin his sermon. He said, perhaps I did not make my point strongly enough, and began talking about abolition once again. The truth is that he was run out of town on a rail just ahead of the tar and feathers, and finished his career in Philadelphia and then New York. Now, it would be nice to think that all of the rabbis who were here in the run-up to the Civil War were speaking out like Rabbi Einhorn against slavery, but in fact, he was speaking in response to Rabbi Morris Raphael, who was a rabbi in New York, who spoke supporting slavery as it was consistent with the Bible. So as we think about the day that we live in right now, I don't bring these stories up to ask you to condemn or approve of others, but this is fertile ground for thinking about things like statues and monuments. Do we judge people by the standards of their own time, or do we judge them by the highest ideals of humanity? More importantly, I want to ask us, who are we today? Ask myself, who am I? Am I Morris Raphael, defending a status quo on biblical grounds because it's been good to me? Or do I stand up like Rabbi Einhorn, even if it is not good for me personally? Do I say, if we want peace, we must break the sword, break the chains that hold people back? To do less is to defend Pinchas in our text. It is to defend the indefensible. Can you hear Ratzon? May this be God's will. Amen.
Yasher Koach. Beautiful. We love hearing about Rabbi Einhorn, who has some descendants in Chicago. He was really an extraordinarily influential rabbi. Thank you. And we are going to remember not only Rabbi Einhorn and his principled stands, but all of our loved ones who died at this season in years past, whom we're observing those who may have died recently in our own hearts and our own communities. We'll be sharing names at our 6:30 Shabbat Shmooze, so we invite you to join us for that. But together now, we'll say the Kaddish for all of our loved ones. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Divra Chirute, V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon, U'vyomechon, U'vchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala U'vizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mivorach Leolam Olamei Almaya. Yit Barach V'yishtabach, V'yit Pa'ar, V'yit Romam, V'yit Naseh, V'yit Adar, V'yit Aleh, V'yit Halal, Shemei Dekudisha, B'richu, Le'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tushvachata V'nechemata, Damiran V'alma V'imru, Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, Chaim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom. Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. May God, the source of peace, send peace to all of us who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us all say, Amen.
Well, we've had a wonderful opportunity to pray together and to learn, and we're going to close our service for this Shabbat evening with Ein Keloheinu, a beautiful song that we sing from generation to generation. So hope you can join in at home. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Micheloheinu, Michadonenu, Michemalkeinu, Michemoshienu. Non el Eloheinu, non el Adonenu, non el Malkeinu, non el Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru, Lefahanecha, Lefahanecha, Ketoret Hasamim. Thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.